Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's edition of It Could Be You. I'm your host, John S., and I'm back with you once more in the studio right here at KABF 88.3 FM, right here in downtown Little Rock. One of these days, I'll have to share with everybody the kind of oddball things that happened to me over the last several days, about the last week, but that's going to be for something else. Got a visitor returning to KABF. She's not been on the air for quite some time, certainly not since last spring. And, well, it's always going to be good to have someone on who can speak with authority when it comes to areas such as criminal justice reform. Now, just to give you a heads up, we are going to be talking about, as we like to do here at KABF, we're going to be talking about an area of criminal justice reform that is, shall we say, controversial. And so you're going to be alerted to that. Now, in the meantime, your comments, your questions, anything that you'd like to share with any of the guests, or, well, if you're not able to come on to the phone, and that's not going to happen until either we get funded well enough for some state-of-the-art equipment, or the COVID panic allows us to once again have in-studio guests. But if you have your questions, you have your recommendations for future guests, future topics, questions and comments to share with guests, and if it's something you want to follow up with, send them to me. Send them to John S. It Could Be You at KABF 2101 South Main, Little Rock, Arkansas 72206, and I will make sure that your concerns, your questions, your comments will get to the right people. Okay, and please keep listening to the program. And keep those, like I said, keep those recommendations coming in. It could be you hungry. It could be you homeless. It could be you who has violated perhaps some particular laws in the criminal justice system. And it could be anything from someone who has maybe 2 or 3 offenses, all the way down to maybe someone who got falsely accused. But this area of controversy, it's going to get a lot of people's nerves and perhaps teeth on edge when the two words sex and offender are put into the same breath, into the same sentence. Well, there's been some real developments, as I understand it, going on with this particular aspect of criminal justice reform, and I mean reform. With me on the air is the leader of one of the national organizations that has been taking a look at sex offender laws, the need for reform. And she's back with me again. Vicki Henry, Women Against Registry. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
All right.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I want to welcome you back to this week's edition of It Could Be You, and I want to go on ahead and let me get my notes here. How about, just as usual, letting people know how to get in touch with WAR, Women Against Registry?
Well, there's several ways. You can send us an email at contact@womenagainstregistry.com.
Uh-huh.
You can call us at 800-311-3764.
Mm-hmm.
You can reach us through Twitter. You can reach us through LinkedIn, and people also reach out to us on our Women Against Registry Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I also understand that for quite some time now, WAR has also had like a 24-hour telephone hotline for people to call either to get information or just maybe to let them know what has happened, so that they know that someone is out there who understands what's going on and at the very least could lend a set of sympathetic ears. Would you like to share that contact phone number with the listeners?
Well, that is our support line,
uh-huh.
and we do sometimes during the early morning hours, we don't answer it, but we do return calls.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that people like, about it is that, and most people, they just want somebody to listen. They want somebody to know that, or they want to know that somebody out there cares
mm-hmm.
for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we do. We listen. We're not legal folks,
mm-hmm.
and we try to affiliate them with others, in their area. So the way to contact us is through the 800-773-4319. And again, or you can reach out to us. There's also a contact us form on our website
mm-hmm.
that we respond to.
Give them that phone number again, please.
Let's see, it's 800-773-4319.
Okay. Now, there are War Women Against Registry chapters in quite a few of the states, and there is one here in Arkansas. If someone wants to get in touch with the War chapter in Arkansas, they should just go to the main War website or just give a call, and they can get the correct information on how to contact the Arkansas chapter.
Right, and we will put them in touch with Debbie, and we will, as well as any other state that
mm-hmm.
that people tell us they're just so shocked that somebody is out there fighting this issue.
Well, and probably just as shocked to learn that there are people out there who doggone well fully understand what they have gone through.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I am not a registered citizen,
mm-hmm.
But I see, I hear, and I probably am just about as close as you can get to that lifestyle. And so, yes, it's something that the public does not understand. Go ahead.
You mentioned registered citizen. Now, for comparison and contrast, way too many people out there are still using the term sex offender. And there's been, I found out that War has been right in the middle of setting up, and let me see if I get this right, that Women Against Registry is planning a moratorium on using those two explosive words. That,
yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. From what I've heard, from what I've learned, that the term sex offender is really potentially and frequently actively misleading. If a person uses that term, it's someone's going to jump to the conclusion that the person is still offending, when a person could have had a one-time break of the law, shall we say, years ago, and is not sexually reoffended, has not sexually caused any harm, damage, and so on in the years or decades since. Now that strikes me as something that should be used for the public to have a more accurate picture, to not go off half-cocked when they hear the misleading term sex offender.
Yes, and we did have a presentation at one of our conferences, and it was made talking about reforming our message,
mm-hmm.
and it's time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so War will launch a moratorium. It's going to be a 12-month event.
Starting
January 1st.
Okay.
And we hope to change minds, and we hope to change hearts. And
mm-hmm.
the way that we've got to start doing that is to stop calling people sex offenders,
mm-hmm.
Because, that implies that, they're never going to change. And
mm-hmm.
the sad part about that
mm-hmm.
is that the way the Smart Office set up their program that was delegated to the AG by Congress,
mm-hmm.
They set it up by original offense, and that in itself says once offender, once an offender, always an offender.
Right.
And that doesn't give anybody hope.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing.
It also flies in the face of research, as I understand it, that has been going on for years now. And let's see, there's, what is it? It's the Association of Treatment for Sexual
Abusers.
Sexual addicts, or whatever, ATSA, ATSA?
Yeah, it's the Association for Treatment of Sexual Abusers. Okay. And yes, they are, I think they recognize that, something needs to happen. They need to change some of their dialogue. So, and so we will be engaging them.
Now, that's not the only thing, as I understand, that WAR is going to be doing, either towards the very end of this year or probably more so in 2021. So let me ask, first of all, are there any planned, at this stage, just planned, WAR or maybe other conferences that are going to take a look at the need for sex law reform? Or is there going to be anything, say, set up during 2021, whether it's going to be in-person or virtual talks or webinars or anything like that? Right now, is there anything planned?
No, there's, excuse me, there's not a conference planned or anything like that. As we did the last time, we did a cost-benefit analysis and then decided that we were not going to do that because, a lot of times people tend to come to the conference and they enjoy being in others' company. They enjoy hearing speakers. They get away from it for a while and then they go back and get in their cocoon.
Right.
And so we have to have people, come out of that cocoon. And so we're not planning one, but some of the things that we'll be planning over the year that will focus around, the two words sex offender will be, I think, supplemental to a conference. Now, and we also, while I'm thinking of it, we're not for reform. We're for abolishment. We want the registry abolished. And there's too many things out there that can be referenced and, to show that it doesn't work. And so we have to change hearts, change minds, and that kind of thing. So,
it strikes me that research is going to be one thing where you're not going to be able to deny the findings when they have been found again and again by so many people working in different fields. But yet, at the same time, there's arguably the need for the equivalent of an emotional gut punch. And you know what did it for me? What did it for me is on several occasions I visited the Women Against Registry website. And there, at least in my not too humble opinion, there is or was one photograph that says it all. It's a picture taken, as I understand, at a protest in Florida. And there's this little boy, 6, 7 years of age at the time, and he's
Sebastian.
And what's on there? And please correct me if I get this wrong. That it's like he's hiding his face in shock and everything like that. And on the placard is the laws you intended to make to make me safe have made me and my family homeless.
Yes.
Now that,
and it was
Yep.
Well, that is Sebastian, and the photograph was taken by one of our Florida members that went and helped and took pictures and that kind of thing. And Sebastian was there with his mom, and what he was referencing was the fact that at that point in time, his dad could visit their house in the daytime, but his dad had to sleep in his truck up the street at night. and that disturbed Sebastian and his two siblings, which their handprints are what's on the poster, and we.
Yes.
We have been asked to use that by other folks, and it is on our one of our pull-up banners, and we've gotten a lot of compliments on it.
Well, and rightly so, because again, it symbolizes. I think it symbolizes what you're working for, what other criminal justice reform groups are working for. Taking a look at how things have really changed since the exercise of the Get Tough on Crime and the laws that were passed starting in the mid-1990s. Subsequent research has come about in the years since then. And even now, people who were very seriously associated with these Get Tough on Crime bills now are saying, whoa, wait a minute, we better have another look. It might be kind of a convoluted way of saying, if I knew then what I know now. But from what I've been hearing and reading, Women Against Registry, other groups advocating for criminal justice reform are looking at the research and are really working hard to bring it to the public's attention, where the public, I hate to say it this way, whether the public likes it or not. And one thing you told me about in getting ready for this program were some peaceful protests that WAR recently had or was part of out in Colorado.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's the second large protest that we've done, and we intend to do some more because we want to keep the momentum growing. But we, after the decision in the 10th Circuit, which was in Denver, we went there and we did a peaceful demonstration. We actually, with the help of our webmaster and another gentleman, and we live streamed it. They live streamed it, and it was very successful. And so we're going to do that some more. But there's just, it's so important to talk to people on any level that you can reach them on.
Now, you yourself have been very definitely a part of that. Now, early in this year, there were a couple of articles and I saw them. One was from Vox Online from January, and then Reason magazine online in February. Profiled you and other people who were working in this reform, and you made very good, very strong cases there. Then, more recently, you told me about an interview that you had on CNN, and from what I got from you, that went kind of less than you had hoped.
We didn't have an interview on CNN. We did a podcast with Amanda Knox, which was part of the Sundance Film Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that, and then they came back and asked if we wanted to do a podcast with Anthony, who is part of the Truckers Against Predators, and he's one that runs the St. Louis group. So we did a podcast with Anthony and, talked back and forth with him about what he was doing and how he was doing it, and the fact that the FaceTiming somebody that you've tricked into catfished into coming to a mall or a location and then live streaming that. My direct question to him was, what are you thinking? What if somebody knew his wife or his kids? Do you think about them? And of course he said no. So, but anyway, and then recently, I responded to a Google alert, and it was the end of October, and I responded to something they were putting out.
Oh, the Halloween hysteria.
Yes, right. And it was Youngstown, Ohio, and he said, I just put this out last night, and I got something from you. And he wanted to do an interview, so we did, a Zoom interview, and it was to be about Halloween, so I was all prepared to talk about Halloween and the issues and the misguided public. And we spent very little time talking about that. The majority of the time, we talked about Women Against Registry.
Right.
He could not believe that we were against a registry because he said, "Well, don't you want the public to be safe?" Of course, but that's not gonna work. That doesn't work.
Well, according to the research that has been accumulated, and that you're right in the middle of accumulating, what?
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. It's just. And we say we have to stop talking about, how the registry is going to protect people, kids,
which it doesn't.
Teens, whatever. No, it's not going to. But we want to we're not like the people in Florida that want to, like Lauren Book reads, goes to schools and whatever and read this book, it's okay to tell. Well, of course it's okay to tell, but we want to get ahead of the issue. We want to stop the harm before it occurs.
Well, with that in mind, I'd like to call everybody's attention, like the peaceful protest, the work you did with Amanda Knox and the truckers, the CNN or the interview with the fellow in Ohio. These are all accessible online. Anyone who wants to take a look and get accurate, and I'm stressing the word accurate, information about this aspect of criminal justice can find on YouTube, among others. Am I correct on that?
Yes, and also I wanted to mention we direct people a lot to our landing page, and about halfway down on the left, there Emily Horowitz's debate that was done 3 years ago, and we tell people go there, listen and learn. Because it was a significant debate, pro and con, on the registry.
It was. I saw it. I saw it, and Emily Horowitz, and she is one of the leading researchers into this particular area of criminal justice, and she's not afraid to speak truth to power. And this debate. And I never saw her lose her temper. I never saw her, if you will, lose her cool. And she brought up in very understandable language, very accessible terminology, what was wrong. And from what I could tell, and from the audience response, it's totally, absolutely clear that Emily Horowitz won that debate. The cause for reform, the cause for making sure that people get accurate information got a definite boost as a result of that debate.
Well, and you know what, the funny thing was when we were waiting, and Emily said, come back to the green room with me, so I went back there, and the guy that owned the Soho facility where they have these monthly events like the debate and all that, and he was sitting there working on like a coffee table, and we started educating him about the registry and then the false, whatever. And some guy opened the door and said, hey, talking to him, hey, so-and-so. And he said, you know what they do? And he started telling this guy. So it was kind of funny. But the lady that she debated, I challenged her a couple of times after it was over. And she looked at my name tag the second time, and she said, I know who you are, and she walked off.
Oh, man. Oh,
yeah. So, because she was on an attorney list that I still do, send things out to attorneys that need to know, things that are happening and decisions and stuff. And the next time I sent something out, she asked me to take her off the list. But that was her.
Well, I think that in light of work that's being done in so many different areas of criminal justice reform, being taken off a list such as War Presides, is a step in the wrong direction. So I want to urge everybody out there, whether it's specifically, say, sex offense law reform, whether it's the concerns about the sex offender registry, or any aspect of criminal justice, whether or not it's connected with this one area, do your research. Reach out and contact groups such as Women Against Registry. There are a number of them out there, and there are a number of other research organizations that will really surprise you about their findings with criminal justice reform. That could be everything from the Council on State and Local Government to the national various national organizations. There are offices that collect crime information on behalf of the FBI, and more than a little of what they find would surprise you. And it really, again, makes a lot of the laws that are on the books now kind of, how can I put this? Soul-crushing?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and one thing that I'm going to, because you say I tell it like it is, but I know that all the registrants want the registry to be gone, okay? And even people that advocate, for whatever relating to the registry. All registrants want the registry gone. They want to be off of it. They want their lives back.
Yes.
The people that say, well, you can't just get rid of it. We got to do it incrementally. Well, okay, then pursue that. But there's too much against just incrementalism. So that's what I'm saying, because I can't tell you how many times over the last 10 years that I have been told, I want to be off of that thing. I want it to be over, and all of that, and so it's pretty significant, and so that's what we'll keep working for, and as part of the moratorium and getting rid of the words, I've talked to a few people since we decided to do this, and I have not heard one person say, "Oh no, we don't want to change those two words. We don't. We want to be called those."
More and more people are recognizing the damage that has been done and should not be continued. Vicki, we're going to have to take a break now. You're listening to this week's It Could Be You. I'm your host, John S.
Profile America, Tuesday, December 15th. Today is Bill of Rights Day, in honor of the date when the first 10 amendments to the Constitution took effect in 1791. The Bill of Rights added specific, important freedoms and government limitations to the 3-year-old Constitution. Among them are enshrined the freedom of religion, speech, the press, the right to peaceably assemble and bear arms. Also, the right to petition the government and be secure in property. When the Bill of Rights was passed, America's population of about 4 million in the then 14 states had available about 100 newspapers exercising the First Amendment freedom contained in the Bill of Rights. Today's population is around 330 million and chooses from nearly 6,700 newspaper publishers nationwide. Profile America is in its 24th year as a public service of the U.S. Census Bureau.
And I'm back with you, host John S., with the second half of this week's It Could Be You. My guest, Vicki Henry, who heads up Women Against Registry. Vicki, there may be some people out there who might have missed my first few minutes of talking with you. So how about not only reintroducing yourself, but very definitely give them those different ways, the best ways, for them to contact Women Against Registry.
Okay, thank you. I'm Vicki Henry, president of Women Against Registry. We're a nationwide grassroots organization, and we advocate for the families that have loved ones on the registry, and as well as the registrants. And the way that there's several ways that people can reach us. They can send an email to contact@womenagainstregistry.org. registry.com, or they can, there's a contact us form they can fill out on our website. And we also have forums that people can go on and comment or, list a subject they want to talk about. And we have a LinkedIn page. People reach us through that. We have a Twitter account. People reach us through that. And we have, of course, our Facebook page, Women Against Registry. We post a lot of stuff there. So, and then the War Support Line is, we're not actually on 24 hours, but they do take messages, and people can reach us at 800-773-4319. And we do take calls there. We do try to help people. We don't have legal resources. We don't have therapists, but we have listeners, and we have people that will try to help.
Now, speaking of which, I forgot to bring up that if people want to help, they can certainly donate to Women Against Registry. They can volunteer, and even right here in the state of Arkansas that does have a Women Against Registry chapter, they can contact you. They can contact the main organization and get in touch with War Arkansas and find out how they can help in this particular state. Now, Vicki, it's really something. The second of the two announcements at the break in the hour, had to do with the Bill of Rights and, correcting things, petition the government for redress of grievances. It's a kind of a fancy way of saying that if something turns out to not be working on behalf of the American public, we, the members of the American public, have the right to petition there to be changes. And I've learned that very recently, earlier this year, at least two federal circuit courts, and I believe it was the 6th and the 9th circuits, that they were responding to some states, Michigan I think is one of the states involved, that they were really taking a look at the way the sex offender laws were set up in various states, Michigan, various other states. But the 6th as well as the 9th Circuit said, whoa, wait a minute. And in a nutshell, that the way the laws were set up, they were trying to really rope in almost everybody, and that was a violation of a critically important principle in the making of laws, and that is a violation of what's called ex post facto, or after the fact. Now, those, I understand, have really helped so many people understand that the courts can be petitioned, and that the unfairness, and not just of, if you will, sex offender laws, the registry, and so on, but other aspects of the criminal justice system, looking back on and now looking at the changes that have to be made over and above what was done in the mid-1990s, for example. But you told me that there could be another circuit, another federal district court circuit that could be added to this roster, and it's right there up where you're located, up in the state of Missouri.
Well, let me go back. There, you referenced the 6th Circuit, and of course the case that you're talking about is in Michigan, and I call it a game of volleyball because they filed a lawsuit. Miriam and the ACLU filed a lawsuit, and anyway, so they won the lawsuit, and regarding ex post facto, they did not. SCOTUS wouldn't hear it. Supreme Court of the United States would not hear it. Grant cert, as they call it. And so the state was still obligated to act on what was won at the state level. They didn't do it. 2 years later, Miriam, they filed a lawsuit against the state. And now the state has come back, and they're still dragging their feet. And now they've got a bill that they're trying to finagle to get passed so that they can get around what was won. Okay, so
it's my understanding, I wanted to break in, it's my understanding that what they're trying to do, they're trying to twist and turn the Michigan law into all sorts of different contortions that, as I understand, it's not helping the situation. If anything, it's making it worse and leaving the legal doors wide open for future additional challenges.
Right. And that's, I had someone tell me today that they stopped paying attention to like the case files, this, that, and because it's very discouraging because, they file a suit and then, it goes back and forth and back and forth. And I had somebody several years ago told me, well, that's the way the system is set up. And I said, well, eventually somebody's going to run out of money. But anyway, when you see that the scales that are supposed to be weighted, well, that just doesn't happen because you never get there. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, they'll just keep on fighting and fighting and fighting. And so that's why we say if we educate people, change hearts, change minds, then at some point the public's going to say, that doesn't seem to be working. And we've got to keep criminal justice reform and prison reform in front of the public, in front of the legislators, no matter what happens with Biden and Harris.
Right. But what about this upcoming trial? I think you mentioned to me earlier that it's set for February of next year.
It's called the Olson, Olson, complaint. And it was 4 years in the making.
Wow.
And Miriam told Randy, don't rush.
Clarify for the listeners, Miriam. Who's Miriam?
Miriam Ackerman is with the ACLU. She's the major player with the ACLU.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so I put her and Randy here in Missouri together and in touch, and she told him, take your time. They worked 3 years on theirs before they filed it. This one was 4, and there's quite a number of litigants in it. And it's also it's 40-something litigants, and they're asking, and it's also on behalf of registrant some of those litigants' families. So they're asking for monetary damages. So it will be heard in February at the federal level in Jefferson City, Missouri, and this is something that WAR helped with. We didn't finance it. This person and his family financed it, but we've done as much as we could to help it and gather actual cases for them to review and see which ones they thought would work the best. So yes, that's going to be in February, and we being WAR, are supposed to fill the seats every day for the 5 years, 5 days that they have set aside.
And if someone would like to participate in that, should they just get a hold of WAR, go to the website, or pick up the phone and say, well, I want to be a part of this?
Well, yeah, anyway, you can send it contact at womenagainstregistries.com and say that, you want to be a part on this day, whatever. But we ask that people, if you step up, we ask that you please follow through because, we don't want people to say, oh, I want to be there. And we know that everybody does, but... Big talk, no
substance.
Yeah, because we don't want an empty room because it's going to be impactful to the court if the room is full every day.
Which is a, for lack of a better word, it is a tactic that I have seen work very definitely at the state capitol. Now, I should also point out to the listeners that Arkansas is part of the same circuit, the 8th Circuit, as is Missouri. So the outcome of this trial in Missouri will definitely have an impact on the laws on reform here in the state of Arkansas. So this is another reason for really everybody to pay close attention and to do what you can to support what's going on, to have reforms that are based on factual research and common sense finally come in, and to overturn the god-awful appeals to emotion that way too many people are still making. And now, this is also, I think, a good opportunity to point out that, I was at a Women Against Registry conference a couple of years ago, and, there was an attorney, one of your speakers was a North Carolina-based attorney, and he said during the presentation, and I had an interview with him following that, and he said that where a very great deal of reform, criminal justice reform, is going to be taking place would be in cases like this that pay very, very close attention to a violation of due process. And that, for those of you who want to find out about due process, I recommend that you take a look at the U.S. Constitution, Amendment 5, Amendment 6, and Amendment 14. And then you take a look at your own state constitution and find the due process which must conform with the federal Constitution. So this is going to be something, and it strikes me that this could be an argument being used that the way it's set up in the Eighth Circuit is also a violation of due process, also a violation of ex post facto?
Well, and we had, I don't think we had somebody from North Carolina. You might be talking about Narsel, because I know
possibly.
Yeah, that the Robin works with the guy there. Anyway, and you know what? I'm going to be really blunt in saying due process is a joke. It doesn't happen, because there, it's like when somebody is arrested and arraigned, they sign away the fair and or a speedy trial aspect of it. That's one of the first things you sign. So they don't have to do that. And then, it's like, okay, well, Johnny, we got you on these charges, ... and we'll get rid of 2 of those dots.
If you shall we say, come to terms on the other one?
If you plead out, so you'll just have one, and then maybe one minor thing. If you plead, otherwise, Johnny, you could be looking at 25 to life. Well, who's not going to take that? So even one of the justices said, a decision without a trial is not a decision.
It also strikes me. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it also strikes me that you could hang a sign on certain of these individuals and say, "Caution, bully at work."
Well, yeah, and people on the prosecution side that kind of stretch things. We'll just say it that way. Yeah. But anyway, especially with these stings, but that's a whole different topic. But anyway, it's just, and then there was an attorney that we work with here in Missouri that, that talked about the trial penalty. And the attorneys are against it. They are so against it. And what that means to people that have no idea is just what Johnny was facing. It's like, well, you can take this plea for 5 years, or you can go to trial, and you're gonna suffer the trial penalty.
How many times have I heard that? How many times have I heard that from guests, from people I've talked to? I've lost count.
Yeah. And I've had people tell me I would never plead to something I didn't do. And I go, okay, well, here, next time you're in front of your computer, you look up the name Brian Banks. And then you come back and tell me what you think.
Brian Banks.
Oh, by the way, there was a movie made about Brian Banks' story, and Janice and them were supposed to have him at their conference, their live conference. But Brian Banks was supposed to come out of high school and go pro.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And the girl accused him, and that's exactly what he was facing, 5 or 25. And he took the 5. He served his time. He came out, well, of course, his pro career was down the tube.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he worked with and the girl contacted him and said she was sorry. She da-da-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked with the Innocence Project and got his overturned.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember there was a case in Connecticut a few years ago of a middle school teacher who there was one particular female student who was just a constant source of trouble and irritation. And he kind of laid the law down to her about constantly showing up late, bringing inappropriate music. So she got back at him by falsely accusing him of having molested her. And the only way that that was proven false is that the girl slipped up. She told a friend about what she had done and why, but she told the friend using Facebook. But that didn't stop the instructor from losing his job and running up a six-figure debt in the court fight that ultimately, if you will, petered out. Now, so you see, I know from the research from the guests I've had on this program that serious changes are needed. Reforms must be used. Now, one thing that, as I understand it, and please comment on this, that one of the things that Women Against Registry, that other similar organizations can do, really any organization involved with or desiring criminal justice reform, should put as a big priority more outreach to, well, in the case of registrants, to more people of color who are on the sex offender registry, and also to take a look at aspects of people on the registry that the ordinary public might not know about. For example, the surprising number of people who are on the registry, because it's a consequence, it's a result, if you will, of them being on the autism spectrum. These are things that a lot of people don't know about, and this must help build more support for criminal justice reform. Would you care to rebut or comment on that, Vicki?
Well, there's a disproportionate amount of black folks that are on the registry, and there's been several studies that were done, regarding that. And I think the largest one was actually done by Alyssa Ackerman, and a lot of people know, who she is. But because she did a study involving, I don't know, it was like 5 or 6 digits of number of people. She did a large study.
Wow!
And it came back that, and Debbie Nathan wrote something in 2018. Debbie is a researcher that I met when she came for the screening of Untouchable. She was there, but there's. She did a really good piece, and it lists Alyssa's, and it lists another one by J.J. Prescott. And,
oh, yes.
So anyway, the chances are that, in other words, like everything else, there's going to be more black folks that are going to be, at the top of whatever it is. They're going to get charged. They're going to, they're going to this and that. So, but this is no exception. And from what I'm reading from what Debbie wrote is today there's like 900,000 people on the registry, public registry.
Oh, more than that, as I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's closing in on the 1 million mark from the last I heard.
Right. This was in 2018. Yes, it is, and that's why they stopped publishing it. And besides the fact that they know that it's not accurate, and it says about 1 in every 100 black gentlemen are on the registry. So, and so I'm going to go ahead and post that on our Facebook page again. so that people can look at Debbie's study and there they can click on the different things. But yes, it is most of the other studies are smaller, but the one that Alyssa did was a huge one.
Well, and then there's the work that Emily Horowitz has done, and you got the link to the debate that she had, and you mentioned the documentary Untouchable. So all of that is findable going through the Women Against Registry website. Now, we've only got a few minutes left, and I did want to try to get a couple of more points out to you as well as the listeners. Now, a lot of people have gotten concerned that they want reform in so many areas, including criminal justice areas. Now, with the COVID virus still being of a very great concern, despite, say, the slow progress of the vaccines, there may be, one of the more common ways, and I've seen it done, is where concerned members of the public will go to their various state capitals and talk with their individual state legislators, their lawmakers. And they're going to also talk with members for here in Arkansas, for example, it's the judiciary committees at both the state Senate and at the state House levels. Now, there have been some concerns that the virus fears may not allow or may not permit, if you prefer, members of the general public to actually be physically present to give to put in their proverbial 2 cents worth. What does WAR and what do similar organizations recommend if this should happen? How should concerned members get in touch and get the information to their lawmakers?
Okay, there's in some states, and when we try to teach people, if we can get them in front of their computers, for one thing, because people need to know more about what's going on than what's going on inside their 4 walls, and that's something that we face all the time. But they can. If you want to testify, of course, if you do that, you usually get like 3 minutes, and you type out what you're going to say, and you turn that in also, and it goes as part of the committee hearing, and what you say too. Some states have a form that you can go on and you can fill out, and if you can't be there, you can fill out that form and submit it.
Virtual testimony, in other words.
Well, it's written, it's written testimony. But I was at a hearing several years ago in Illinois and testified as WAR, and they had. I heard one legislator say something about they had 200 and something written testimonies submitted for that hearing. And of course, he joked and said, "Well, where are these people?" But it doesn't matter. They had to put them in the record. So, but yeah, people can do that, and people don't know that you can also, in the majority of states now, you can go to your General Assembly site and you can actually watch something being debated on the floor of the House or the Senate. You have that ability now.
Now, one last thing. We've only got about a minute left. Vicki, it may be too early to start making judgments, but we've got a new administration coming into Washington, a new presidential administration next month.
Right.
Do you see, or would you want or be willing to make any sort of comments, hopes, expectations, cautions about the new administrative leadership, president, vice president, the new attorney general?
Right. So, well, what I have said, and I've debated this with people, is that Joe Biden was one of the authors of the Adam Walsh Act in 2006. He is part of the old regime, and of course, Kamala Harris is not liked in the state of California because she's put so many people away as a prosecutor. So we can only hope that what they say about criminal justice reform, and Biden made a statement that when he got in office, that 100% of the people that had been incarcerated would be housed, and it's like, really? Well, we're going to take you at your word.
Okay.
Especially in Illinois.
Well, Vicki, we got to cut it off. We got to cut it off there. But just a few seconds. Give the website and the phone number for WAR one more time, very quickly, please.
Okay. It's Women Against Registry is our website. The phone number is 800-311-3764 if you want to reach out to us.
Okay.
Or by phone.
Vicki Henry, I hate to cut it off because there's so much more we can talk about, but we're out of time, and I want to thank you for being on this week's It Could Be You. And I'll follow up with you very, very soon. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Again, it happened to me. I'll go into it at another time, but take care of yourselves, because between now and next week's program, something could happen. And it could be you that it happens to. I'll be with you next week.
Hi, this is Alanis Morissette, and you're listening to KABF 88.3 in Little Rock, the voice of the people.